Well, welcome everyone to this week's webinar. It's great to see everyone. Hope everybody's doing well. I am Bruce Rosenblatt. I own Senior Housing Solutions. I am a senior housing advisor and a specialist in senior housing in Southwest Florida. I have been in this area for almost 29 years, and so I'm pretty much, living here for most of my career. And so I love living here, and I think a big part of our life here is the nature and our land and our, the environment where we live. And so I thought, today's topic would be really relevant to everybody because of, of the environment that we live in. And so it was because of Josephine Morris, who's on our call today. So she suggested that we feature the Conservancy. I have a good friend who also works for the Conservancy, and so I'm a big supporter of it as well. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Katie. Katie is going to share with us a lot about what the Conservancy does, and I'm sure everybody will find it very informative. So Katie, this is your show at this point, and you can take it from here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bruce. I'm so excited to be here with you all. Josephine, it's so good to see you. I've been missing you the last couple of months, so I'm excited to see some familiar faces and get to know the rest of you. My name is Katie. I've worked with the Conservancy for almost 7 years. I've worn a few different hats during my time with the company, but I currently am the community engagement and marketing coordinator. So I do outreach presentations with public groups to kind of foster interest in what we do and how people can get involved. Obviously, in the current climate, things are a little bit different than how I would normally do things, but we're adjusting to the virtual platform, and I'm excited to share some of the work that we've been able to continue doing through this summer and beyond. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are and how we got started as an organization, as well as some of the programmatic departments that are working to fulfill our mission. And at the end, I have a few different ways that you'll be able to get involved. And if you have any questions, my contact information will be at the end as well. So you can either ask me here or reach out after the presentation. So without further ado, we shall begin. Oops, maybe. Here we go. So we have been an organization for over 50 years, and we actually got started as an organization because there was a road that was proposed to be built through to connect Naples to Marco Island. And that road would have gone through what we now know as the heart of Rookery Bay. And Rookery Bay is an estuary system that is extremely important to the ecosystem that we have here in Southwest Florida. So a group of citizens banded together and said, this proposed road will destroy our ecosystem. It will destroy the habitat that we know and love here. So they banded together, they created a petition that was successful in stopping the construction of that road. And so that was not built, and Rookery Bay was saved, and therefore the Conservancy was formed. So that was kind of our initial issue, that groups banded together to form what we now know as the Conservancy of Southwest Florida. We have 4 programmatic teams that help work together to fulfill our mission of protecting Southwest Florida's water, land, and wildlife. And we do serve a 5-county region here in Southwest Florida that includes Charlotte, Glades, Lee, Hendry, and Collier County. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about these 4 departments and some of the projects that they work on. There are a lot of things that I won't have time to touch on today, just because we are such a vast organization. While we are small, we are mighty. So a lot of the information I'm going to talk about today is on our website if you want to learn more. But again, if you want to follow up with me on a specific interest that you have with the organization, I'm always happy to follow up one-on-one with you after the presentation as well. So I love to start off with our Science and Research Department. They cover a really vast amount of projects in our region. So we do work with native wildlife, we work with invasive wildlife, we work with habitat restoration. So I'll talk about a few of those projects today, but unfortunately I can't cover everything because the collective years of experience with our science department is over 100 years of science and research. So we have a lot of experts on our team that are working on a lot of different projects. So I'm excited to share a few of those with you. The first one that is kind of in its final stages here for the summer is one of our sea turtle research projects. So we have a team that goes out onto Keewaydin Island. It's a 7-mile barrier island, and we monitor the nesting females and the hatching nests of the loggerhead sea turtles on that beach. So for the first part of the season, sea turtle season starts May 1st. So for the first few months of the season, our team will actually go out during night. So they will go out from sunset to sunrise, and they will monitor the beach for nesting females. And in the photo you can see here, this is a nesting female who's actually in the process of laying her eggs in her chamber. So they will come up onto the beach, they will dig a chamber, they will start to deposit their eggs. And once they do, all of that energy is being used to put those eggs in the chamber. So they kind of go into a trance, and that allows our team to collect a few different pieces of information and data for that individual. So they'll take measurements, they might take tissue samples, they'll put a tag on her flipper, or insert a little micro chip in her flipper that can be identified later if she comes up onto the beach again or comes up onto a different beach. So they'll try and get as much information on each individual as they can. And that will help us understand the population of loggerheads on our specific beaches, but also we collaborate with a lot of different organizations throughout the entire state of Florida and beyond. So it helps us understand the species as a whole as well, and helps us understand the population of loggerhead sea turtles. Here on our coast of Florida, we don't get quite the number that you might see on the East Coast. On the East Coast of Florida, you get tens of thousands of loggerhead nests every season. We only get a few hundred, but we have actually collaborated with Rookery Bay to determine the internal the nest temperature of the species or the population that we have here on our beaches. And so we have come to learn that a lot of the temperatures in our nests are actually skewing the population male from hatching from our beaches. If you've ever heard the term hot chicks, cool dudes, if the temperature is above a certain threshold temperature, it's a female. And if it's below a certain temperature, it's a male. And so our nests are producing a good amount of males over here. So as a threatened species, this is a really great thing for us to know, so we can help continue to work to protect the nests and the females that are coming up to our beaches. This project is concluding its 38th season, and the individual who started this program 38 years ago, Dave Addison, was actually able to, in the first half of his time with the Conservancy, see his conservation efforts come full circle. So sea turtles will actually come to lay their eggs on or near the beach that they hatched from. And they do take about 25 years to reach full maturity. So about 20 to 25 years into his time with the Conservancy, he started to see numbers rising, which is showing that the conservation efforts from 20 years prior were working. And so it was very cool to see that come full circle. And we've continued to see an increase in nesting numbers on our beaches. And we've had record-breaking years in the past couple years as well in terms of numbers of nests laid and number of hatchlings that have made it to the beach. In the second half of the season, so right now this is kind of concluding, as the nests are hatching, the team will actually dig up the remains of the nest, and they'll count all of the hatched eggshells to understand how successful each individual nest was and how many hatchlings made it to the Gulf. There might be an undeveloped egg or something that may have happened to the nest, so all of those things are recorded. And again, we collaborate with that data with a lot of other organizations throughout the state to understand how well this population did as a whole through each season. This is just another close-up of that nesting female. So this is a smaller female. Actually, they can get to be over 250 pounds. So this one probably wasn't quite that large, but they're getting a measurement of the head. Loggerhead actually literally means big head. So these turtles have one of the larger skulls of the species that we find here in Southwest Florida. So they'll get measurements on the head, shell, different pieces like that. And then again, they'll also take tissue samples and try to tag the individual as much as possible before she crawls back to the water. This is a picture of a hatchling that was left behind in the nest. So sometimes there is one hatchling that maybe didn't make it out with all of its siblings. And so that's another reason why we would excavate the nest, to make sure that all of the individuals that are happy and healthy are able to make it to the Gulf. You can see the size difference. There's a little bit of a difference between the hatchling and the adult. So you guys are probably not strangers to the Burmese python issue that we're having in Southwest Florida. It's been kind of the forefront of a lot of different news articles, especially recently. So our team is in its 6th year of the Burmese python removal project. And our project is just a little bit different than some of the other ones that you might see in the state of Florida, just because we are using a science and this help create a management plan for python. An individual can reach over 15 feet in length and be over 100 pounds. And so that's a lot of python to have. But some of the more exciting statistics is that it's not just removing one individual at a time, but that we were able to remove developing eggs, or we were able to see breeding females. And so now we're reducing the ability for them to breed and procreate in our ecosystems. And so what they have done is they have actually sent out snakes that have trackers in them, and they actually track their movements, and they track their
Katie? Katie, we're having some audio issues. Just
I think it might be on my end, unfortunately. How is that? Can you hear me now?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
you kind of go in and out, so just.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Everything looks okay on my end.
Yeah.
I'll keep it. Sorry about that, guys. So when we send these trapped snakes out into the wild, we're hoping that they will bring us to one or more, especially breeding females. So this, oops, wrong way, sorry. There we go. So this is an example of a female who is guarding a clutch of eggs. And so that individual will sit on top of her clutch for the 2 to 3 months that they're incubating. She will not move. She will not feed herself. She will only guard those eggs until they hatch. When these individuals are hatching, they are very quick to eat. They can eat a lot, and they grow very quickly. So that is why they're able to expand so quickly among our ecosystem and do the damage that they are. So our team was able to remove not only this female, but this clutch of eggs. They are humanely euthanized, so they're not put back out into the wild, in hopes to reduce the impact of the Burmese python on our native wildlife. So once the individuals, if they're not sent out as a scout snake back into the wild, they will be brought back to our lab. And I like to use this picture because the individual in this picture is one of the project leads, and he is about 6'1", 6'2", so he's a pretty big person. And so it kind of shows you just the scale of the animal, that these are not small animals that they're dealing with. So what they'll do is they will, it's very similar to the Sea Turtle Project, they will take a lot of different data points on each individual to understand what our Southwest Florida population of Burmese pythons is really looking like, and how we can use that information to hopefully create a management plan and a removal plan. So they are able to take a look at the inside. So a necropsy or an autopsy for an animal is performed. And in this particular instance, you can see that this female was carrying eggs. So they're able to note things like that. They're able to count those. And again, this was an example of, we were able to remove this female and all of her eggs. So those individuals were not able to be released into the ecosystem. This is another great example of collaboration. So this group was actually learning a little bit about how the Burmese python is impacting our native wildlife and our ecosystems, and they were actually utilizing that to teach other schools how food web is impacted, especially by apex invasive predator. So we're able to utilize what we're doing in our environmental science world to expand beyond that department, and especially with collaborations with FGCU and other organizations, it's a really great way to teach people about the impact and how they can help make a difference. We also do habitat restoration. We do a lot of wildlife surveys as well. So we have one of the longest mangrove monitoring projects in the state of Florida. This is Kathy, she's the director of our science team. And she has been working on understanding the growth rates and the restoration success of mangrove populations in several different areas. As I'm sure you're all aware, mangroves are a very important part of our ecosystem here. They do provide stabilization for our coastline. So when we have big storm events or we have big wave or wind events that come from things like hurricane or tropical storms, those mangroves actually help offset that damage and offset what's happening in that natural setting, and they're able to kind of mitigate that for us here on shore. So mangroves are important for us. They're also very important for the natural ecosystem of Southwest Florida as well. And so we're really grateful to have this continued project to keep understanding their restoration efforts and their growth efforts and how we can continue to protect the threatened mangrove species we have here. So once I talk about science and research, I like to follow that with our policy and advocacy work because they really go hand in hand with what we're doing. So a lot of the things that we're seeing out in the field on our science and research side of things directly affects what our policy and advocacy team is working on. So our policy team is working to provide decision makers at a state, local, and federal level with science-based information to help protect our water, land, and wildlife, especially because a lot of that can't advocate for itself. So that's kind of our job to advocate for those things. One of the big topics that has been a constant priority for our team is water quality and Everglades restoration. So this is Marissa. She's one of our senior policy team members, and she is the lead on all of our water quality projects and kind of advocating for that topic among her team. And so if you guys remember back in 2018, we did have several very large, long algae blooms. This is a picture of one of the blue-green algae blooms from an aerial point of view. That was back in 2018. It had detrimental impacts to a lot of the water and wildlife that we have here on our coastline. So Marissa was part of a team that helped put together our estuaries report card. This is a document that is published every 5 years. And on the right-hand side, you can see there are two different sets of grades. So the yellow is the compatibility for wildlife in those 10 different waterways, which kind of are ranging. You do see some A's and B's in there, but you also see some C's and D's. But the blue circles, unfortunately, are the grades for the actual water quality itself in regards to nutrient pollution and other water quality kind of factors as a whole. And this comes out every 5 years. So they're taking data over the course of a 5-year span to help publish this document and understand the health as it continues on. And you'll notice that in the blue grades, there's nothing above a C+. And so we're able to use documents like this one to show our decision makers and our leaders that our water quality isn't great. Here's the reason why. This document actually breaks down each individual waterway and talks a little bit about what the impacts are for each individual waterway. And we can use that to help make a case to have more water quality regulations, whether it be on a local level or all the way up to a federal level. We're able to work with a lot of different groups. I always like to talk about what people can do in their daily lives to help combat some of these things. So my favorite personally is converting your yard into a Florida-friendly landscape. After I was trained on some of our water quality topics, I went to my landlord and I asked him to explain what we had in our yard. Was it Florida friendly? What maintenance did it require? Things like that. I'm happy to report we do already have a Florida friendly landscape. So I was excited to learn that that was something that he had chosen to do to kind of offset the amount of water that you might need or different fertilizer, things like that. But you can also join our e-alerts so you can follow along with updated committee meetings and council meetings and different things like that where they're discussing different topics, and you can comment or contact your representatives. We give a lot of information out to our followers on upcoming topics and upcoming meetings where there are decisions that are being made. And so if you're interested in this particular topic, I'd highly recommend signing up for the e-news. I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. We also have you can wash your car on your yard rather than in your driveway to offset some of the runoff in the water. So I started doing that as well. I also quizzed my landlord on how our septic tank runs, and it's fully working again, happy to report. So lots of different things that you can do just kind of as a homeowner or a renter or whatever your situation might be, just understanding kind of what's happening in your daily routine in terms of your water runoff and different things like that is a great way to get involved, and stay knowledgeable on the impacts on our waterways. So we also have a wildlife rehabilitation center that's actually at our location, which is in the heart of downtown Naples. We are located right next to the Naples Zoo and Coastline Mall. And the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center is open 365 days a year, 7 days a week, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So they are treating injured, sick, and orphaned native wild animals in hopes to release them back into the wild. And last year they treated over 3,700 animals. And this year we are on set to not only break that record a little bit, but by I think we're very close to that number already. And it's only October. So that's definitely concerning that we're seeing an influx of animals this year. We have broken records in past years as well, which is not a great thing to report. But I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So our wildlife hospital has specialized rooms for the different patients that we're seeing. So this is our bird room. Here you'll see a barred owl being treated by a staff and a volunteer. And in our bird room, we have a few different setups for different patients. So every patient that comes in has its own individualized care plan. If they have a severe injury and we don't really want them to fly or stretch out their wings, we put them in a smaller enclosure to make sure that they're safe and that they're not injuring themselves further. If they maybe have a moderate injury, but we still don't want them to take full flight, we have a flight cage. So it would allow them to maybe stretch out their wings all the way, but not take full flight. Behind this building, we actually do have some outdoor spaces where we're able to continue the rehab process for animals who may be almost ready to be released back into the wild, but aren't quite to that stage. For example, owls rely on their silent flight in order to hunt their predators, or their prey, excuse me. And they rely on that to be a top predator in the middle of the night. And so if an owl had a wing injury and can't fully fly silently quite yet, they might not be able to hunt properly. So we would put them in an outdoor enclosure until we can confirm that they're flying completely silently, allowing them to be in their most natural state when we do release them back into the wild. We also have a nursery. So this is really important, especially in the summer months. A lot of the species that we have here in Southwest Florida have their nests or they lay their eggs in the summer months. So in the late summer and early fall, we see a lot of different birds or mammals. If they are orphaned from their parents, they might still be requiring to be in a nest or have temperature control. So we actually have incubators that can help pretend that they are with their parents still, or they are in that nest setting, so that they have that really natural feeling and helps to increase their success of surviving and being released back into the wild. A lot of the younger patients require very frequent care. So they're getting fed maybe every hour, every several hours, especially for the first few days or weeks that they're at the wildlife hospital until they're strong enough to be on their own. And so they require a lot of really intensive care. So our nursery, especially in the summer, is very busy, very heavily staffed to kind of combat all of the patients that we're seeing. And as far as birds, we get a lot of storm activity in the summer. We're also trimming a lot of our vegetation in our own yards a lot more frequently because it's growing a little bit quicker. So that can all damage or displace nests in people's yards, and that can affect birds, even squirrels and the bunnies too. All of those nests can be impacted by heavy landscaping activity this time of year. So like I said earlier, each individual or group of individuals gets their own care plan. So for instance, this group of baby ducks will have bath time once or twice a day, very similar to how they would in the wild. They would go seek out a body of water. They're very commonly known to move between land and water throughout their day. So we offer them all of those same interactions so that, again, once they're released, they kind of know instinctually exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And they're so cute. I mean, how can you not love a group of baby ducklings? So this is one of the most exciting parts of this job, obviously, is being able to release animals back into the wild. This picture is particularly cool because this is a magnificent fricate bird. The animals are known most of their time in flight. They do not spend very much time on land or landing in general. They use the energy of the wind and the kettles that are formed by the clouds to soar above. They're usually found on the coastline or a little bit out to sea. And so to have them a little bit inland is it's a very cool sight to see. They're not in very often, but they have like a 7-foot wingspan when they're full adults. So they require to be released at a higher altitude. So when you have a bird like this, you have to find somewhere like the top of a bridge, and you actually have to let them go in the wind in order for them to be released. And so these are very cool. We don't get a lot of these patients. So this was a very rare opportunity, very successful. This bird was able to be released actually just a few weeks after it had been admitted it was a superficial wound. So this is a great opportunity, and this is why this team is able to do the things they do, because they get moments like this to just kind of be so excited about. So our last group that I like to end with is our environmental education team. And what they're going to do is take everything that I've talked to you about so far, plus so many more topics, and they're going to interpret that to the school groups within our 5-county region, but also to the general public. So they reach over 7,000 students annually, both at schools and at our nature center with field trips. But then this team also manages all of the public programming. So if you were to come visit our nature center, anything interpretive that you would experience is also managed by this team. Unfortunately, we are closed to the public until further notice. So we are undergoing a renovation to one of our exhibit buildings, our Adult and Discovery Center. We're adding on 2 large exhibits to that building. So we are closed for renovation purposes, but we're excited to announce when we're able to be open, the new interpretive exhibits behind all of those topics, and just kind of increase our capacity on what we're able to teach our visitors about. So normally in a pre-COVID, pre-renovation world, this group is going to see a lot of different students, but one of the main projects they work on in the fall is pairing with the Collier County School District to deploy our Watery Wonders program. And so this is a program that is in conjunction with 5 or 6 other environmental nonprofits. So in 2nd grade, the group goes to Rookery Bay. In 3rd grade, they come to the Conservancy. 4th grade, they go to Big Cypress, etc. And so we are the 3rd grade stop, and our group is learning about water quality and how to measure that and how to understand that and interpret that and analyze that data. And then also doing wildlife surveys in our filter marsh, which is actually on our campus. And so these students are able to actually real time do the work that our science and policy teams are doing at a 3rd grade level to help understand why that's important for our environment and for our ecosystem. And so once they complete this, again, like I said, they go on to different organizations, and among their 5 or 6 years of these field trips, they're able to learn different components of our ecosystem. So by the 6th grade level, they have a true understanding of the variety of what we have here in Southwest Florida and why it's so diverse and so unique, and how they can help make a difference to protect it. So this is really cool. This, you see, inspires a lot of different young minds. They do get to go about knee deep into the filter marsh to catch the wildlife that they're surveying with their dip nets. So you'll see some students don't want to dip a toe in usually, you know, they're very hesitant, but by the end, usually those are the students that are like shoulder deep. And those are the ones that you know are going to be the environmental scientists when they grow up. So it's very cool to see them get excited and kind of tackle those fears of the unknown and understand what we're looking at and learn a little bit about what's right in their backyard. This year, obviously, things have looked a lot differently for that team. We're not having schools come on site to us. We're also not going into schools as we normally would. And so they adapted very quickly to an online platform. So over the summer, they published a lot of different lesson plans for audiences of all learners. So we put all of those on our website, and they were things that you could do in your own backyard or when you were walking around the neighborhood, or maybe even from inside your house, just looking out your front window. So they were able to do a lot of different exercises in that capacity. They also utilized a lot of our exhibits to film and go virtual for field trips and different things like that. Here you can see Tanya is at the touch tank, and she's talking about one of our urchins to the group. So they were able to totally shift their entire platform in just a matter of weeks. And they're now in the works with Collier County school districts and beyond to convert all of our fall programming and probably spring programming into that virtual platform. So we still plan to reach a lot of those students this year. It's just going to look a little bit differently, but they've been great at adapting and adjusting to delivering that same message. So there's a couple different ways you can get involved. Like I said, our website is a really great platform to learn a little bit more about what I talked about today. I've been with the group for almost 7 years, so I could probably talk for another 30 to 35 minutes at least, but I want to be conscious of your time today. So please visit the website if you have any questions. Our volunteer opportunities look a little bit different right now. We actually have a group of over 600 active volunteers. The Wildlife Hospital is an area that's always accepting volunteers, so if you're interested, all of that information is on the website. or I'd be happy to send it to you. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. Josephine is one of our longtime volunteers, so if you have questions, I highly recommend you talk to her. She's worked with me personally for a lot of those years. Most of the time I've been at the Conservancy, I've worked directly with her, and she's been wonderful. So there's a variety of volunteer opportunities. They look a little bit differently right now, but we would still be happy to have you join the team if that's something that you're interested in. So keep an eye on those things. The e-news alerts, like I said, so for our policy action alerts and just updates in general about the projects that we're working on can all be seen in our e-news and our e-alerts. If there's something that we find very crucial, that a comment period is open or there's something that's being decided, we will send out an alert and say, hey, if you're interested in this topic or you want to come make a comment or want to submit a comment on this issue, here's how you can do it. And we offer those options for people who are interested in those topics. So I highly recommend subscribing to the e-news. It's a great way to stay involved in what we're doing if you're interested in any of the things I've talked about today, or hopefully all of the things I've talked about today. So this is how you sign up for e-news. You're actually just going to go to our website on any device that you have, scroll to the very bottom, and you'll enter your name and email. It's very easy. It's easier than signing on to Zoom or maintaining internet connection, which apparently I can't do today. So that's unfortunate, but very easy. So I'd be happy to have you guys sign up for the e-news. If you have any questions too, you can always reach out to me as well. This is my email and this is my direct line. So if you do have any questions, I would be happy to answer those. I can answer them right now. I ended a little bit earlier than planned. Otherwise, I would be happy to answer them via email as well.
Katie, thank you so much. It's so interesting. I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
So at one point there was a lot of talk about changing Lake Okeechobee so it flows south versus east and west. Can you share any news on that?
I can share a little bit. So that is a very complex topic, and it kind of ties into a lot of different water quality projects through the state. So there is a comprehensive Everglades restoration plan known as SERP. And this includes over 60 individual restoration plans that throughout the state of Florida are in hopes to benefit the water quality, whether it be redirecting waterways or creating reservoirs. There's a whole slew of different things that are going on. And one of those is the EAA reservoir that is up near Lake Okeechobee. And so the natural flow of the lake was to flow south through the Everglades and through kind of where we all are right now. And because there's so much development and so much has changed in the landscape that is south of the lake, we can't make the flow exactly how it used to be, or there would be a lot of detriment to the development and all of the lands, agricultural lands, different things like that. So they're trying to redirect the flow in the most natural way they possibly can, while still being respectful of what's south of the lake. So the reservoir is one of the projects in that restoration plan that's helpful to, when we do have our rainy seasons or non-rainy seasons, it's helpful to, when they are maintaining that water and releasing it through the two rivers on the side, it's helping to hold that water, and hopefully what we're trying to push for is have a water quality treatment component onto it. So if the water is released in a large capacity, it's not polluted water. The goal of that is to not have more pollution entering our waterways, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that's kind of my short answer. There's probably a lot more that goes into it besides that, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My other question was about, I guess about clean water, and I know we all, have dealt with the algae issues, and are you finding that I don't want to get too political, but are you finding that the state of Florida is aware and are trying to work with the groups to help remedy some of these issues?
It's a good question. That is not something I obviously have a super lot of detailed experience with. That's way more in Marissa's wheelhouse, but I do know that she works with groups on every scale. So for example, she works with municipalities to update their fertilizer ordinances to have a rainy season ban so that we're not applying harmful fertilizer during rainy season to have it immediately wash off your yard and then into our natural waterways. And so she continuously is staying up to date on what folks are doing. So we had Collier County didn't have a great one, but Lee County had a great one. Marco Island was doing really well. And then Marco Island reverted to a lesser exciting fertilizer ordinance. So she kind of stays up to date with all of those. Obviously, it does rotate with who's in office and what decisions they're making, but she does stay up to date with things like that. That also goes for on a state level and a federal level as well. So she's constantly in the works with conversations. And there are a lot of groups that are working together. Marissa is actually the co-chair of the Everglades Coalition, which is one of the largest coalitions of organizations working for water quality betterment, Everglades restoration. And they always have a very successful conference where they're able to kind of prioritize what the big issues are and how they're going to tackle those. So they have had a lot of success in recent years, but there's still obviously a long way to go as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for Katie? Hey,
Hi, Joe. Bruce.
Hi, Joe.
Katie, I wonder if you could comment on the county referendum, which states to re-establish funding for conservation COLIA to protect water quality, water resources, and wildlife habitat. I also don't want to get political, but I wonder if you could give me the Conservancy's viewpoint on this.
Yeah, so actually in one of our most recent e-news articles, I can actually find it and I will email it to Bruce so I can send it out. I guess I can email it to you directly too, but I can send it out to the group. But we are excited to see that, and the stance is to vote yes for that referendum in November. So I can send out the full article on that. I'd be happy to share that.
Yeah,
but
if you can send me a link, if you can send me a link, because I'll be sharing this recording. So if you can send me a link, that would be great.
Perfect. That sounds good.
So, hey, so Joe, what do you do for the Conservancy? Tell us what it's like being a volunteer.
It's just very exciting because you meet many different people and you get their questions. Sometimes they're people from all over the world. And what can I say? People of all ages, all nationalities. Wonderful experience.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Katie, for sharing. And I think it's very interesting. And, you know, I think all of us should take a probably more active role into, you know, helping our environment. So thank you so much. And again, I'll be sharing hopefully this recording with everyone when we're done. So I just want to tell you all that my webinars, well, we won't have one next week, but the following week, 2 weeks from now, I have a Medicare specialist. And so, you know, the Medicare enrollment is coming up. And so I thought it'd be really good to have someone talk about Medicare and kind of help, you know, clear up some of the confusion out there. So that I'm sure you'll find that very interesting as well. Sort of, you know, totally different than what we're talking about today, but it's all good. And so stay tuned for that. I'll be sending you all an invitation to that. And, you know, again, if you have anyone, if you know of anybody that has any questions about senior housing, please have them reach out to me. This is what I do. And it's my pleasure to do these webinars with you all. And it's, I'm having a lot of fun doing it. And it's great to feature great organizations like the Conservancy. So you all stay well and be well and be good out there. So.
Thank you,
Thanks
Bruce.
so much, everyone.
And thank you, Katie. It was a wonderful presentation. Bruce, you provide us with all kinds of wonderful information. Thank you.
Thank you. Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you so much.